Admiral Park stood before the Galactic Confederation's assembly, her back straight despite the weight of Earth's future on her shoulders. She studied the vast chamber, where beings from hundreds of worlds sat in tiered seating that rose like a great bowl around her. The architecture itself seemed designed to make newcomers feel small. A soft buzz of dismissive whispers filled the room. Many representatives didn't even try to hide their contempt, leaning toward each other with barely concealed smirks and pointing gestures. The moderator, a tall being with gray skin that seemed to shimmer like metal, raised a six-fingered hand for silence. The chamber quieted immediately. The humans request full membership rights within the Galactic Confederation, the moderator announced, voice echoing through the chamber. The words hung in the air for a moment before laughter rippled through the assembly. Park kept her expression neutral, though her stomach tightened. She had expected resistance, but not mockery. A blue-skinned diplomat with ridges along his skull rose smoothly from his seat. Park recognized him as Ambassador June of the Aldebaran Collective, one of the oldest civilizations in known space. These primitives, he said, not bothering to address Park directly, developed faster than light travel barely a decade ago. My species has sailed the stars for 12 million years. What could they possibly contribute to our confederation? Murmurs of agreement followed his words. Park noticed how few representatives even looked at her, as if she weren't worth acknowledging. The assembly must consider the precedent. Added a floating orb that glowed with changing colors. The representative of the gas giants from Sirius B. If we admit every species that stumbles into space, our standards will fall. Quality must be maintained. Observer status only, declared a small bird-like being with iridescent feathers. They must learn their place as newcomers. Perhaps in a century or two, they might earn the right to speak in this chamber. More agreement followed, along with scattered applause. Park's jaw tightened. Earth had overcome so much to reach the stars. World wars, climate disasters, resource depletion, only to be treated like children at the adults' table. The humans had united their planet, developed clean energy, and mastered faster than light travel through their own ingenuity, not through stolen or gifted technology like some of the younger Confederation members. The moderator turned to Park. Does Earth's representative wish to respond to these concerns? Park stepped forward, feeling the eyes of the galaxy upon her. She had prepared a passionate speech about human resilience and potential, about what they could offer the Confederation. But looking at the sea of dismissive faces, she realized no speech would change their minds today. Very well, she said, bowing formally as her diplomacy trainers had taught her. Earth accepts observer status. For now. The emphasis on her final words was subtle but clear. Several representatives exchanged glances. As Park turned to leave the speaking platform, Ambassador June approached her. Admiral Park, he said, speaking directly to her for the first time. Do not be discouraged. All species face this test of patience. It is how we determine who is truly ready to join our community. Park met his gaze. With respect, Ambassador, Earth has faced far greater tests than wounded pride. We will earn our place. He tilted his head. Perhaps. But know this, 12 million years of history has taught my people that newcomers rarely surprise us. Then perhaps, Park replied with a slight smile, that is why you seem so bored with the universe. She left him standing there, his blue skin darkening in what might have been anger or surprise. Back on the Earth vessel, Park's assistant waited anxiously. How did it go? Park removed her formal diplomatic coat. Exactly as expected. They see us as children playing with technology we barely understand. So, what now? Park looked out the viewport at the massive Confederation station. It was beautiful, a marvel of engineering built by the combined knowledge of hundreds of civilizations over millions of years. Now we watch. We learn. We gather information. She turned to her assistant with determination in her eyes. And we prepare to show the galaxy that humankind has more surprises than they could possibly imagine. What she couldn't say, what she'd been briefed never to reveal, was that Earth scientists had already discovered something in ancient ruins that suggested humans might not be newcomers to the galactic stage after all. Something that, if proven true, would shake the Confederation to its core. Dr. Kim rubbed his tired eyes as the clock on his lab wall showed 3:27 a.m. The research center was empty at this hour, which was exactly why he preferred working now. No interruptions, no questions about his increasingly unusual research direction. Blue light from his holographic display cast strange shadows across the cluttered workspace. Around him, shelves overflowed with artifacts and samples from distant worlds. Privileges of being Earth's leading xenorchaeologist, even if most of his colleagues thought he was wasting his talents on fringe theories. Kim leaned forward, studying the projected images floating above his workstation. Ancient artifacts from 17 different worlds displayed eerily similar patterns, too similar to be coincidence, despite what the Confederation scholars claimed. Computer, isolate pattern sequence alpha through gamma on all samples, he instructed. The holographic display shifted, highlighting specific symbol clusters on each artifact. The computer had been running comparisons for weeks now, and the results were becoming impossible to ignore. Computer, overlay the Centauri tablet with the Proxima ruins inscription. The two projections merged in the air before him. Despite originating from star systems over 4 light-years apart, despite being created by entirely different species, the symbols aligned perfectly. Kim's heart raced. The Confederation Archaeological Guild had dismissed his early findings as pattern-seeking and random noise, a human tendency to find meaning where none existed. But this was different. This was proof. His fingers trembled slightly as he gave the next command. Now add the proto-human Denisovan cave markings from Earth. The computer complied, adding the third pattern to the overlay. The cave markings were at least 70,000 years old, created long before humans had writing. They had been discovered in a remote Siberian cave and had puzzled archaeologists for decades. His breath caught as the 3 writing systems merged into one cohesive script. What had appeared to be separate, unrelated symbol sets now formed complete sentences in a language nobody had seen before. "That's impossible," he whispered, though no one was there to hear him. These civilizations were separated by millions of light years and hundreds of thousands of years. He rose from his chair and paced the small lab, mind racing. The implications were staggering. Either all 3 civilizations had independently created identical writing systems, a statistical impossibility, or there was some connection between them that defied conventional understanding of galactic history. Kim returned to his workstation and began typing notes furiously. The Confederation taught that interstellar travel began only 14 million years ago with the Aldebarans. They claimed humans were among the youngest spacefaring races. But if these findings were correct, his comm unit beeped, startling him. Who would call at this hour? The small screen displayed Secure Channel, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Kim hesitated before answering. His research wasn't exactly classified, but he'd been careful about sharing his findings after the ridicule he'd faced from Confederation scholars. "Dr. Kim, Admiral Park here. We need to speak privately about your research." Kim felt a chill. Admiral Park was Earth's representative to the Galactic Confederation. Why would she be calling him directly? "Admiral, how can I help you?" he managed. "Not over comms," she replied, her voice low. "I'm on Earth for the next 12 hours. Meet me at the botanical gardens near your facility. 1 hour from now." Kim checked the time. 3:42 a.m., that's before sunrise. "Exactly. Come alone and bring your latest findings. I believe we've both discovered something the Confederation doesn't want us to know." The connection ended, leaving Kim staring at the blank screen. He looked back at the merged symbols hovering in the air. Whatever he'd stumbled upon was clearly bigger than academic curiosity. With quick, deliberate movements, he began downloading his research to a secure data crystal. As the progress bar filled, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy was about to change. Outside his lab window, stars twinkled in the pre-dawn sky. Among them were the homes of civilizations that had called humans newcomers and primitives. Kim wondered what they would say if they knew what was hovering above his workstation right now. Evidence that the story of life among the stars might be very different from what anyone had been told. The data crystal completed its download with a soft chime. Kim pocketed it and headed for the door, his mind filled with questions only Admiral Park might be able to answer. The low hum of the archival vault's environmental systems seemed unnaturally loud in the silence as Dr. Kim and Admiral Park waited for the outer door to finish its decontamination cycle. The blue light washing over them made Park's naval uniform appear almost black. "We shouldn't be here," whispered Dr. Kim, glancing nervously at the security cameras above them. Though supposedly deactivated for system maintenance, he couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. The archival vault of Centauroid Prime was off-limits to non-Confederation members. Humans, as mere observers, had no business accessing the deepest historical records of galactic civilization. If they were caught, the diplomatic fallout would be catastrophic. Admiral Park's eyes glinted in the dim light. "The archivist gave us 15 minutes while she distracts the guards. That's all we have." 3 days after their pre-dawn meeting on Earth, Park had contacted Kim with an unexpected opportunity. An archivist named Seo had reached out to Park directly. Apparently, some within the Confederation questioned the official historical narrative too. The decontamination cycle completed with a soft chime, and the massive door slid open silently, revealing a cavernous space that stretched farther than they could see. "Remember," Park whispered as they stepped inside, "touch nothing but the terminal I show you. Some of these storage units are booby-trapped against unauthorized access." They moved carefully through towering shelves of crystalline memory banks, each the size of a small car and glowing with an inner light. The technology was far beyond Earth's capabilities, storing data in quantum states that could hold the equivalent of all human knowledge in a space smaller than a fingernail. Kim stared in wonder. "The complete history of the galaxy." "The approved version," Park corrected. "Archivist Seo believes there's more to the story." They navigated the labyrinthine shelves using a small holographic map Seo had provided. After several tense minutes, they stopped at a section marked with symbols matching Kim's discoveries, the very symbols that had appeared on artifacts across 17 worlds. "Here," Kim said, inserting a translation module Seo had smuggled to them. "Let's see what the Confederation is hiding." The crystal terminal activated, responding to the module's access codes. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing star charts and ancient texts. "Records of the Cedars," Kim read, his voice hushed with excitement. "A civilization that disappeared approximately 250,000 years ago." Park leaned closer, studying the data, cross-reference with Earth's timeline. Kim's fingers flew across the interface. "That's roughly when Homo sapiens was emerging on Earth. The transition from Homo erectus." Text and images flowed across the screens as the vast database responded to their queries. Star maps showed expansion patterns from a central point, spreading across what would later become Confederation space. According to this, the Cedars originated in a single solar system, but expanded to thousands of worlds, Kim said, his excitement building. They were master terraformers, genetic engineers, and builders. Park's eyes widened as images flowed across the screen. Those structures, they match ruins found on Earth. Göbekli Tepe, parts of the Sphinx that we always thought were natural formations. And these beings. Kim brought up biological records, showing bipedal creatures with familiar proportions. "Look human," Kim finished, his voice barely audible. "Because they were." Park leaned heavily against the terminal. "That's impossible. The official history states humans evolved naturally on Earth." "The official history is wrong," came a voice from behind them. They spun around to see a tall, slender figure stepping from between the memory banks. It was Archivist Seo, her eyes darting nervously toward the entrance. "You should have longer than 15 minutes," she said quickly. "But we must hurry. I found something else you need to see." She approached the terminal, her six-fingered hands moving with practiced precision across the interface. The cedars didn't just disappear, they ran. And they hid. On Earth and 16 other worlds. New images appeared, star charts showing massive fleet movements, followed by records of planetary bombardments. Something had hunted the cedars to near extinction. The survivors chose Earth as their primary sanctuary, CEO explained. They erased their own technology, their own memories, and began again as primitive beings. A clean slate. Park struggled to find words. That would mean humans aren't newcomers to the galactic stage at all. "You were here first," CEO said simply. "Before the Aldebarans, before all of us." A distant alarm began to sound. CEO's expression tightened. "That's not the guard change," she said. "Someone knows you're here. Take this." She pressed a data crystal into Kim's hand. "All I could copy about the cedars. Now go. The service corridor behind Section 12. "Why are you helping us?" Park asked quickly. CEO's expression was unreadable. "Because the truth matters. Now go, before the Confederation buries it again." The Earth ship Discovery settled onto the dusty surface of Nexus Prime with barely a sound, its advanced landing systems compensating for the planet's unstable crust. Dr. Kim checked his environmental suit one last time before the airlock cycled open. Nexus Prime's thin atmosphere was technically breathable, but filled with spores that caused severe respiratory distress. "Final checks," Admiral Park's voice came through his helmet comm. "Remember, we have 48 hours before the Confederation patrol sweeps this sector again." Nexus Prime was a forbidden world under Confederation quarantine, officially due to dangerous biological contaminants. But the data crystal from Archivist CEO had suggested another reason for the quarantine. The planet held ruins that contradicted the Confederation's historical narrative. Kim stepped onto the alien soil, feeling the crunch beneath his boots. The landscape stretched before him, the vast plain dotted with the remains of massive structures. Unlike other ruins he'd studied, these weren't preserved or restored. They were abandoned, left to crumble for hundreds of thousands of years. "It's like nobody wanted to remember this place existed," said Park, stepping up beside him. The six-person team from Earth moved cautiously across the plain, scanners sweeping for hazards. They passed through arches taller than Earth's skyscrapers, now broken and fallen. Strange metal alloys, still uncorroded after eons, jutted from the ground like bones of ancient beasts. The forbidden planet's surface was blanketed with ruins. Kim moved reverently through crumbling structures that predated all known civilizations. According to the data they'd stolen, Nexus Prime had been a central hub of the Cedars, possibly one of their last strongholds before they fled. "The architecture matches fragments we found on Earth," Kim said, recording everything with his helmet camera. Göbekli tape was built on the same geometric principles. As they ventured deeper into the ruins, the structures became better preserved. They entered what appeared to be a massive temple or government building, its central chamber still intact despite the millennia. "Admiral, look at this," he called, brushing dust from a massive wall covered in ancient script. The symbols matched those from his original discovery. The same writing found across 17 worlds, including Earth. Park approached, her translator humming as it processed the script. The wall was enormous, at least 30 meters high, and curved to form a half circle. It wasn't just text. Images were interspersed throughout, showing bipedal figures fleeing from a dark, amorphous presence that seemed to consume everything in its path. "Project Sanctuary," she read, the translator converting the ancient language. "Final protocol. Technological regression. Seed vaults established on 17 worlds. Primary vault. Earth." Kim's hands trembled as he touched the wall. "We didn't evolve on Earth. We hid there, erasing our own memories and technology to escape something so terrible we chose to forget who we were. And now we've remembered." Park whispered. One of their team members called from deeper in the chamber. "Admiral, Doctor, you need to see this." They followed the voice to find a circular platform in the center of the room. As they approached, lights began to activate around its edge, responding to their presence. "It's scanning us," Kim realized. "It recognizes our DNA." The center of the platform shimmered, and a holographic display materialized above it, crisp and clear despite the passage of time. It showed a solar system with 9 planets. Earth's solar system. A voice spoke, the language ancient but the translator able to process it. Seed Vault Earth status. Active. Primary genetic lineage detected. Welcome home, children of humanity. The hologram shifted, showing people who looked identical to modern humans, dressed in clothing that seemed impossibly advanced. They moved around laboratories, worked with complex machinery, and traveled between worlds. "This is impossible," Park breathed. "The Confederation dates human civilization as less than 10,000 years old." The hologram continued, showing a timeline of expansion. Humanity spreading to thousands of worlds, terraforming planets, even altering their own genetic code to adapt to different environments. Then something changed. A shadow appearing at the edge of charted space. The expansion stopped, then reversed, worlds going dark one by one. "They were running from something," Kim said, watching the simulation play out. "Something that hunted them across the stars." The hologram showed the final plan. 17 worlds selected as arcs, with Earth designated as the primary sanctuary. The process of regression was depicted. Advanced humans voluntarily surrendering their technology, their knowledge, even altering their own memories and genetics to become primitive hunter-gatherers. "They hid in plain sight," Park said. "Became too primitive to be worth hunting." The hologram froze on a final image, a countdown timer, showing just over 250,000 years. "That's how long ago this happened," Kim said. "And now we've returned to space, rediscovering who we once were. And whatever hunted us," Park added grimly, "might notice that we're back." Admiral Park stood at the center of the Galactic Confederation's Grand Assembly, her heart pounding despite her calm exterior. The vast chamber, with its thousands of representatives from across the galaxy, had never seemed so intimidating. Behind her, a team of Earth scientists, including Dr. Kim, waited with their evidence. Data crystals, artifacts, and genetic analyses from Nexus Prime. The moderator's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Assembly recognizes Admiral Park of Earth, who has requested this emergency session to present unusual findings." Park took a deep breath. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Confederation, 3 months ago, I stood before you as Earth requested full membership. You deemed us too young, too primitive, mere newcomers to the galactic community." She activated the holographic display, showing the symbols they had discovered across 17 worlds. "What I present today will change everything we understand about our shared history." The display shifted to show the ruins of Nexus Prime, the ancient writing, and finally, the genetic analyses that compared ancient DNA to modern humans. "Our evidence confirms that humans are not newcomers to the stars. We are the Seeders, the civilization that disappeared 250,000 years ago." The Confederation Assembly erupted in chaos as Park presented their evidence. "Preposterous," shouted the Aldebaran ambassador. "These primitives only achieved spaceflight in the last century." "Absurd revisionist history," called another. "Impossible," shouted representatives from multiple worlds. "Humans cannot be the Seeders." The moderator banged his ceremonial staff, trying to restore order. "Representatives will speak in turn." Dr. Kim stepped forward, activating a different display. "The genetic evidence is irrefutable. The ancient artifacts on Nexus Prime respond only to human DNA. They recognize us as their creators." "Nexus Prime is quarantined," shouted a reptilian delegate. "Your presence there was illegal." The chaos continued, with accusations flying from all corners of the chamber. Park had expected resistance, even outrage, but the level of denial surprised her. It was as if some representatives were afraid of what this meant. Then, from the highest tier of the assembly, where the oldest civilizations sat, movement caught everyone's attention. The ancient historian Lee rose slowly from his seat. Lee represented the archivists, the oldest living civilization in the Confederation. They rarely spoke in assembly, preferring to observe and record. As he stood, the chamber fell silent. Lee was rumored to be over 3,000 years old. His life extended through technologies only the oldest species possessed. His frail body was supported by a hovering chair that brought him down to the central platform. "I have sat in this assembly for 2,600 years," he began, his voice surprisingly strong despite his ancient appearance. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen the discovery of 100 new species." He floated closer to Park, studying her with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of millennia. "We have kept this truth for millennia." His voice resonated through the silent chamber. Humanity did not merely reach the stars recently. They created the very roads between them. Before your ancestors evolved, humans seeded the galaxy with life. A wave of shock rippled through the assembly. Coming from any other speaker, the claim might have been dismissed. But historian Lee had never been known to speak falsely. "The archivists have been guardians of this knowledge since our own awakening," Lee continued. "We always knew the children of Earth would someday return to claim their heritage." He activated his own display, showing genetic sequences that spiraled through the air. "The genetic markers in their DNA confirm it," Lee continued. "All of us, every spacefaring species, carries fragments of human engineering in our genomes. The seeders did not merely travel the stars. They shaped life itself, guiding evolution on 1,000 worlds." The assembly remained stunned into silence. But the Aldebaran ambassador finally spoke, his voice uncertain for the first time. "If this is true, what happened to them? Why would such an advanced civilization abandon the stars?" Park stepped forward again. "They were hunted. By something so terrible they chose to hide, to forget their own technology, to start again as primitive beings on Earth." "We were not the newcomers," Park stated, looking around the chamber. "We were the first. And now we need the Confederation's help, because the record suggests that whatever drove humanity into hiding may still be out there." Lee nodded gravely. "And it will surely notice that the children of Earth have returned to the stars." The emergency alarm woke Admiral Park from a fitful sleep. She grabbed her uniform and was dressed before the second alarm cycle finished. 3 weeks had passed since the revelation in the Confederation Assembly, and the galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Humans as the ancient seeders, the forgotten founders of galactic civilization. Park reached the command center of Confederation Station Alpha just as Counselor Han arrived. The Aldebaran diplomat who had once mocked humans as primitives now treated Park with cautious respect. "Report," Park demanded, taking in the scene. The massive holographic display showing Confederation space was lit up with hundreds of blinking red points. "It started 90 minutes ago," said the duty officer. "An abandoned station in the Proxima system activated on its own. Then another near Sirius. Then dozens more. The pattern is spreading outward." The ancient defense station hummed to life after 250,000 years of dormancy. Similar activations occurred across the galaxy as systems detected genetic signatures they'd been programmed to recognize. Long-forgotten technology, buried beneath the surfaces of 100 worlds, was waking up. "What's happening?" demanded Counselor Han as alarms blared throughout Confederate space. His blue skin had paled to an almost gray shade. Dr. Kim rushed into the command center, his hair disheveled, clutching a datapad. He had been working with a joint Human Confederation team to decode more of the records from Nexus Prime. "It's the defense grid," he said, connecting his pad to the main display. "The Seeders, our ancestors, built an interconnected system of automated defenses before they went into hiding." The main display shifted to show a detailed map. The red dots weren't randomly distributed. They formed concentric rings around certain systems, with Earth near the center. Admiral Park studied the incoming reports. Our ancestors built safeguards. They're recognizing us, welcoming humans home. That's why they're activating now. Han asked. Because humans are back in space. Kim nodded. The systems were designed to recognize human genetic signatures. When we began exploring the stars again, when we visited worlds our ancestors once inhabited, we triggered recognition protocols. Park felt a chill as she realized the implications. If these systems are waking up to protect us. But they're also detecting something else. Dr. Kim interjected, his voice dropping. The threat our ancestors fled from, it's still out there. And it knows we've returned. He brought up new data on the screen. Readings from the outermost defense stations. They showed energy patterns moving toward Confederation space from beyond the galactic rim. The defense grid isn't just welcoming us, Kim explained. It's warning us. Historian Lee entered the command center, his hovering chair carrying his ancient form. It has begun then, he said simply. You knew this would happen, Park demanded. Lee's ancient eyes held a deep sadness. We knew only that the Cedars, your ancestors, feared something beyond our comprehension, something they could not defeat, only hide from. New alarms sounded. A communications officer called out, Defense station in Sector 87 has gone dark. Then another. Sector 92 stations reporting unknown contact. The display showed the outermost ring of defense stations beginning to fail, one by one. Whatever was approaching was methodically dismantling the ancient protections. How long do we have? Han asked, his diplomat's composure cracking. Kim studied the data. At current progression, 3 months before it reaches inhabited Confederation space. Deep in uncharted space, something ancient stirred from slumber, sensing the reemergence of its old enemy. It moved with purpose, drawn to the genetic signatures it had hunted to near extinction hundreds of thousands of years ago. It remembered the Cedars. It had almost eradicated them once before. This time, it would finish the task. On the command deck, the representatives of a dozen species looked to Admiral Park, the human, the descendant of the Cedars, the child of the civilization that had once ruled the stars. Park straightened her uniform. We didn't just find our past. We've awakened our oldest nightmare. What do we do? Han asked. The question wasn't just for Park, but for all humanity. Park studied the display, watching as more defense stations activated, preparing for a war they had been built to fight long ago. We prepare, she said firmly. We learn everything we can from the defense grid before it falls. We unite the Confederation as never before. And if that's not enough? Lee asked softly. Park met the ancient historian's eyes. Then we do what our ancestors couldn't. We stand and fight. As if in response to her words, another alarm sounded. But this one was different. A new point of light appeared on the display, deep in Earth's solar system. Something buried beneath the surface of Mars for 250,000 years had awakened. It's sending a message, Kim said in wonder. In the Cedar language. The translation appeared on screen. Arsenal Prime Online. Awaiting the children of Earth. For the first time since the threat appeared, Park felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps their ancestors had left them more than just a warning. Perhaps they had left them a way to fight back. The massive view screen on Admiral Park's flagship showed a sight unprecedented in galactic history. 10,000 ships gathered at the edge of the Orion Arm, their formation stretching across a light-year of space. The Confederation had committed every combat-capable vessel to the defense, alongside newly built ships using rediscovered Cedar technology. In the 3 months since the ancient enemy's approach was detected, humanity had worked tirelessly with their galactic neighbors. The Arsenal Prime facility on Mars had contained not just weapons, but vast databases of forgotten knowledge. Technological advancements that would have taken centuries were implemented in weeks as the galaxy prepared for war. Park stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance, watching as the final ships took their positions. The vessel had been constructed using blueprints found in the Martian arsenal, its systems far beyond anything humanity had built before. Final fleet check-in complete, reported Commander Jin. All battle groups report ready. Park nodded. The waiting was the hardest part. The enemy had been detected crossing the void between galaxies, moving with terrible purpose toward Confederation space. The outermost defense stations had fallen silent one by one. Now only the assembled fleet stood between the threat and inhabited worlds. "Open channel to all ships," Park ordered. The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral. You're addressing the entire fleet." The Confederation fleet assembled alongside Earth vessels, a united armada unlike any seen before. Ships of every design imaginable, from the crystalline vessels of the Aldebarans to the living ships of the Vortex Collective, all prepared to face an enemy that only humanity had encountered before. Admiral Park addressed the joint command from her flagship. "This is Admiral Park to all vessels. In 1 hour, we will make contact with the force that drove our ancestors into hiding 250,000 years ago." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew, humans working alongside representatives from dozens of species, united by a common purpose. "For centuries, you called us newcomers. Now we stand revealed as founders. Our ancestors seeded this galaxy, created many of your species, and built the foundations of your civilizations before hiding on Earth to escape an ancient threat." On ships throughout the fleet, crews listened to her words. Some had been shocked by the revelation of humanity's true history. Others had been angry at first, feeling manipulated by the species they now knew had engineered their evolution. But the approaching danger had pushed those concerns aside. She gestured to the star map showing anomalies approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. The enemy's signature was clearer now, a vast cloud of what appeared to be living darkness, consuming energy and matter alike as it advanced. "That threat returns. Our ancestors chose to hide. We choose to stand and fight, not as rulers reclaiming an empire, but as equals protecting our shared home." Dr. Kim entered the bridge, joining Park at the command station. The last 3 months had aged him, his hair now streaked with gray. He had led the team deciphering the Cedar archives, learning everything possible about the approaching enemy. "Final system check complete," he reported. "The Nexus weapon is online." The Nexus weapon was their greatest hope, a massive device constructed from plans found in the Martian arsenal. It had required the combined resources of 17 worlds to build, and was designed to target the specific energy signature of the ancient enemy. "Do we know yet?" Park asked quietly. "What they are? Why they hunted us?" Kim shook his head. "The archives only call them the Void. They seem to be some form of sentient dark energy drawn to the specific frequency of consciousness created by Cedar technology. So we created our own predator," Park mused. "In a way, by advancing too quickly, by spreading our technology too far, we created a beacon that drew them. That's why our ancestors chose regression, to dim the light we were casting into the darkness." New alerts sounded across the bridge. Commander Jin's voice tightened. "Contact, Admiral." Multiple signatures detected at the edge of the sensor range. The view screen shifted, showing a distant darkness spreading across the stars. Where it passed, the light of stars dimmed and then vanished. "All ships, battle stations," Park ordered. "Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for." Across thousands of ships, crews of hundreds of species stood ready as humanity embraced its dual identity, the galaxy's newest arrival and its original architects. The irony wasn't lost on Park. Humans had hidden for 250,000 years, abandoned their technology and knowledge, only to rediscover it just in time to face the same enemy again. But this time was different. Their ancestors had faced the Void alone. Now humanity stood with the children of their ancient works, the species they had seeded across the galaxy, now grown into civilizations with their own strengths and insights. "Nexus weapon charge," reported Kim. Park took a deep breath. "All ships, advance to engagement range. Prepare to fire on my command." As the fleet moved forward to meet the darkness, Park felt a strange sense of completion. The circle that began 250,000 years ago was closing. Humanity had fled the stars as the Cedars and returned as Earth humans, carrying both identities within them. Whatever happened next would write a new chapter in the story of life in the galaxy. For Earth, she whispered. For all worlds.